Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I'm gonna go check on my other group. Don't have fun now. Okay.
Oh, maybe that's why that one was weird. Yeah, you better. Oh, no, we want to ask questions. How about? Then I noticed she said, maybe she can. Maybe that is why that one was weird. Yeah.
Hey, you guys. Are we about ready to get underway? How we doing, Cleveland?
Doing good. Everybody's logging in right now.
Okay, cool. Hey, well, I'm going to talk a little bit as we kind of get underway. So again, I'm Tom Merrill, and I'm really excited to spend some time, us all together in 3 different locations today. And we're going to do a couple of things. One of them, we're going to hear from Elaine Marsh, who is here with Friends of the Crooked River. We're going to talk about a topic that's really cool. So thank you, Elaine, for coming. Thank you ever so much to all the people at the different libraries. Thank you to the teachers and librarians. Thank you to the instructors. Thank you to the funders. Thank you to the University of Akron. And let me go to the issue of the University of Akron because I was doing jumping jacks. That's not how I hurt this, by the way, if you're wondering. I had an altercation with a bandsaw I can tell you about later. But anyway, the University of Akron came through with an endorsement today of sorts, and the Dean for the College of Education has sanctioned this program for graduate credit hours. I sent out an email to everyone about this. If you haven't heard, it's great news, whether you're a professional from the teaching perspective or whether you're a professional from the library perspective. There are 2 different ways that credit is kind of forthcoming out of this, and it's your choice to choose either or, right? So what you can do is you can choose to take CEUs out of this course. That costs you nothing. Or you can choose to go ahead and you would contract with the University of Akron to receive actual graduate course credit for this, for Penultimate. And in the instance that you would do that, then I've sent out a form that you would fill out, and you transact that with the university. The rate for that is $150 an hour versus what you would pay if you dialed up the university, which is $420 an hour. So you can do the math. That's a great deal. So thank you, Dr. Broadway, for everything that you did to smooth the kind of things out so that would happen. And if you haven't seen that email, please take a few minutes to do that in the next couple days. So what we're going to do today is we're actually going to do kind of a Pear Deck donut. So what I mean by a Pear Deck donut is we're going to start off in Pear Deck. If you're at your station, if you want to go ahead and go to Pear Deck, in just a second I'll show you how. We're going to start out in Pear Deck. We're going to wind up in Pear Deck. But in between that, we're going to have a presentation by Elaine March, which I'm really looking forward to, and I'm sure you'll love it too. So hang on just a minute, and we're going to get us on Pear Deck.
Can't get in.
Hey, Tom.
It just says the session has ended.
Can you give us the code for the Pear Deck so our students over here can get on?
Almost on its way. Hang on.
And I get something like the session has just ended.
Are you guys seeing that?
No, we need you to screen share that for us.
I thought I did. Hang on.
When we get to that Pear Deck would like to thing, do we just accept it? Yes. Just accept it.
You guys seeing me yet?
There we go.
You guys with me?
No, wait, hang on.
There's currently logging in right now.
Yeah, you're in. Your teacher will begin shortly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go to the http peardeck.com/join, You'll be asked for your Google credentials on your Google account before you get to this screen, and then what you're going to want to do is navigate so that you can type in RMWVM. Right now we have several people in there. So let's go ahead and kind of get underway with this. If you see that a neighbor is having problems, please take a moment and make sure that you're good. Akron, we good? Akron's good. Okay, so we've got some objectives that we're going to cover today. It's really kind of basic. So the first thing that I want for all of us to do is to remember what we're here for. So we're going to cover the course goal. I also want us to cover that we know and understand the course assignments, which we haven't really talked about up to this point, but I'm going to run through it real quick. Of course, we're going to exercise our fingers in doing some writing, which we're going to do every time we meet. Then we're going to move into kind of this session with Mrs. Marsh, and she's going to be representative of a topic that we're going to use as an example. And this one's on the Cuyahoga River Gorge Dam. What we're interested in is this as an exercise in our ability to access resources, information, and ideas in order to begin working on our assignments. So this is an example of something that we might choose, but certainly it won't be the PBL that you wind up selecting and working on. And then finally we'll come back, we'll ask a few questions on Pear Deck, and then we'll discuss what we're going to do in our next course session. Does that all make sense? Cleveland, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Cool. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about who I am, just so you guys know, and I'm going to put this in a Carrari form. Carrari, remember, is that autobiographical self-reflection that Dr. Broadway talked about, right? And it says, hey, what's going on in your past? Hey, what's going on in your future? And hey, what's going on in your present? So my past, or something of my past that would make sense for you guys to know, is that I was born and raised with Power of the Pen, and that's Ohio's largest interscholastic creative writing project, if you will. So that's in 500 schools, or to put it in kind of layman's terms, about a third of Ohio schools field Power of the Pen writing teams. I've also been in the advertising agency side of things for about 25 years, so I'm a commercial professional writer, and when we talk about commercial professional writing, we're talking about strategies, we're talking about advertising, we're talking about all forms of things. My dream is that I am driven to see the things that I grew up with turn into something that's more of a national movement. So if you think of the good things that a Power of the Pen program does, that 97% of participating teachers are saying, we love this, oh my gosh, this has to be in high school and it should be beyond Ohio. I really want that to happen, and now I'm more and more devoting my full-time career to the teaching and classroom innovation side of things. So if you looked at it this way, I'm driven to innovate in literacy instruction. How does that reflect what I've elected to do in my present? If that's what I dreamed to do and that's where I came from, what does that mean for me now? And what it means for me now, and I'm really proud of this, it's really hard to do when you're my age because I'm starting to get like really old and tired and stuff, but I'm really proud that I've decided to return to school, and I'm getting a graduate degree with my licensure in English Language Arts, okay? So through Dr. Broadway's good graces and several other people at the University of Akron, I'm getting the opportunity to teach while I go to school, and with the hopes of then perhaps continuing on for my doctorate. There's contact information about me. Any of those links are live. You can go ahead and click on those, and you can see my LinkedIn profile and all kinds of stuff about all the agencies and clients I had and stuff like that, which is super boring, and I don't recommend that you do it. Some people ask me sometimes, what's the favorite ad that you ever wrote? What's the favorite ad that you ever wrote? This is a favorite of mine, and it's not favorite because I really like what I wrote for the ad, but I like the idea behind it. So this is a siding company called Louisiana Pacific. They were at the time the second largest building product supplier in the United States. And they had a new siding that had these deep dark colors that had never been done before, that you could put siding that was deep dark colors on your house. So we did all these focus groups, and people decided, hey, we'd buy it only if we felt like we had confidence in the colors.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah?
Sorry to interrupt, but Euclid's still trying to get the code to get in the Pear Deck. Can you share that one more time, please?
Sure.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
All right, thank you.
If I can find it.
Never mind, Tom. We have it. Thanks to Dr. Broadway. He has wrote it down.
Did not remember.
I can't talk. He wrote it down. We're good to go.
Not remember.
See it right here? RMWVM. All right, so we'll go back and we'll finish up this tour real quick. So what we decided to do was not to develop a new brand name for this siding. Instead, we said, hey, what if we attach Norman Rockwell's name to it? So I got to fly out and meet Norman Rockwell's family, and they gave us all this artwork to use. And it turned out to be this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful kind of thing. And not only was it a wonderful thing in terms of having the opportunity to go meet really famous family of people, the siding sold out for the whole year on the first day of its introduction. So that's kind of a fun story. Here's an example of the type of work that I do for Power of the Pen. So Power of the Pen, again, if you don't know, is a program that's been around since 1986. My mom founded it. They gave away, National Education Association gave away fellowships for teachers in the name of Krista McAuliffe, who died in the Challenger disaster. And my mom was one of 3 in the United States. She was brought out of the classroom to develop an idea. Her idea was simply this. She wanted to go into a classroom and have kids write as if it was a team sport. And before you know it, her classroom was competing against the school across the street, and then it was schools around the area, and now it's a statewide program and has been since that time. There will be 8,000 participating writers this year in Power of the Pen program. I want to read for you something. It's in your binder. And you can go ahead and reference it. I'll read it to you. This is a piece that was written by a 7th grader. It's under your reading section in your binder. Okay? So you can, it's the last page in that entire section. If you almost flip to the next tab and then flip back 1 page, you'll get to it. Okay? This was written by a 7th grader. I'm going to read it real quick because it's fun and it has to do with libraries. And then I'm going to tell you the story about the kid who wrote it. So the library, in young Thomas Joyner's opinion, was one of the best buildings in town. It was small and warmly lit, with shelves of dark wood housing books of all kinds. And it had a smell about it, which his peers attributed to old people, but which Thomas actually knew was books, old books, books with character, books of the ages. The dust on these books was that of ancient soil, and mighty empires history spread lightly between pages. Byzantine dust motes and Aztec mothballs, and that's what the library was. And the most ancient, enticing books of the lot sat on a small cart with a yellow sign stuck on it. And the sign read in black letters, B-A-N-N-E-D. Thomas asked the librarian what this meant. Being only 6, but going on 7, he had little experience with longer words, to which the librarian had simply responded, not allowed. Well, if there ever was an infuriating phrase which instilled a frighteningly fiery determination in 6-year-olds around the world to the point where no object was insurmountable and defeat was not an option, it was not allowed. Of course, Thomas, being age 6, did not actually read any terribly large books. Rather, he smelled them. He inhaled their scent, the scent of centuries that he loved, Byzantine dust motes and Aztec mothballs. And Not Allowed told him that these banned books smelled the best of all, that they were the oldest of the heap, Naturally, he had to have one. Librarians be darned. So one searingly bright August day, Thomas stepped into the dark wood shade of the library and, making sure he was unseen, with a quick glance both ways, simply plucked a book from the cart. He had not exactly planned his heist terribly well. In fact, beyond getting a book, he had no idea what to do. He stood staring at the book in his hand for a long time, then suddenly, possessed by a panic, he ran like the dickens to the reference section. Tiny hands woven around his prize, and there he collapsed to the ground, back against the shelf, breathing heavily. A realization struck him. He was holding a banned book. Having accomplished a thing not allowed, Thomas suddenly wondered what made this so-called banned book so bad. Perhaps it smelled awful, like the bog behind his house, or suppose it smelled wonderful, like the universe as a bookmark, or maybe it smelled like nothing at all. Maybe the scent would make his eyes shrivel up and his ears fall off. Whatever the case, the boy was terrified. He sat, heart hammering loud and fast. A librarian would tilt her head and wonder if there wasn't a mouse in the room. But no, it was the beating of Thomas Joyner's tiny heart. And in the reference section, back against a wall of encyclopedias, Thomas steadied his unparalleled 6-year-old nerves and opened the banned book. It was glorious. Thomas closed his eyes and breathed deeply as the hot summer winds on the west, brine and breeze of the sea, and dust in the corners of a pirate's chest rushed out of the book and up his tiny nostrils. Byzantine dust motes, he thought, Aztec mothballs, and, oh Lord, Tommy, you scare me to death, and what's that you're reading? Didn't I say it wasn't allowed? I'll take that and you run along home to your mother, boy. And lickety-split, Thomas Joyner was shoved out the door into the blinding sun by a rather flustered librarian who happened upon him while investigating a mouse's footsteps she had thought she heard. Thomas, bookless, blinked at the sun-drenched street and began the trek home. He could not see what was so bad about the banned book. It smelled spectacular. Just like, he thought, just like Byzantine dust motes and Aztec mothballs. And dust of history in his pocket, he walked home under the white August sun. I read that piece 2 years ago. In Thomas, written by a student by the name of Jake Vanderwall. And it immediately occurred to me, this is special writing, right? So I pulled it. And I got it over to my mom, and we started realizing that this kid, with all of his writings he was doing in the tournaments, had a special hand. Fast forward. About 3 or 4 months later, I'm sitting in an auditorium filled with 2,000 people at the College of Worcester. And across the stage walks this same kid, Jake Vanderwall. And he receives a $46,000 scholarship, full ride, to go to school upon graduation from high school. And the woman sitting next to me, who I didn't know, bursts into tears. And she about digs her fingernails into my arm so hard that I bleed. And she tells me she's Jake's mom. And she tells me Jake was about suicidal before he discovered his ability to write, before it was recognized. This is what happens when we get students engaged, when we reach out and we engage them in literature, when we engage them in the process of writing, when we bolt it to self-realization, to self-discovery, to autobiographical and constructivist kind of an approach as we're advocating by virtue of this class. That's one example of a way that you can innovate in literacy instruction. You can make writing teams at schools. It's a simple idea. The question being posed to the participants in this class, both those that are taking the class now and those that take the class either virtually or in person later, is we're challenging you to please help us answer of those students that visit the library and those students that don't visit the library, those students that sit in your classroom? How can we reach and engage them? Okay? I'd like for you to go ahead and participate with me now. And I'd like to do what I've grown up having to do and coaching others to do, which is to engage in writing. So right now, here's what we're going to do. Choose or envision a favorite fruit or vegetable in your mind. Okay? Pick one. I want you to write about that for 5 minutes, and you're not to stop writing about that favorite until the time is up. Are you guys seeing a box?
Yeah.
See if I can.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
Totally lost it.
I'll tell you about it in a minute. Thanks. Okay, please stop writing. Go ahead and push pause. The king of all vegetables in my mind has to be the rutabaga. It's a root vegetable, and I can lay claim to being the ugliest of all root vegetables. That's cool. Tomatoes are glorious. I'm not talking about tomatoes one buys at the store in the dead of winter. I'm talking about tomatoes off the vine. Hershey's staggering tomato production every year to ensure ripe tomatoes throughout the summer. And blackberries, clusters of warmth and overflowing sunshine potent enough to stain your tongue. They're fuzzy, but don't let that distract you. The quest will find them. You guys are great writers. Strawberries and strawberry shortcake. Oh gosh, that sounds good about me. Strawberries are one of my favorites. Strawberries again. What a bulbous outsider sitting in the metal ring bowl on my kitchen table. Others sitting around and beside are tiny in comparison to the palm tree topper. I think I know where that one came from. Magically delicious fruit is what my heart yearns for in the summer months. These are really cool. Black cherries for you, black cherries for me. Summertime means buying black cherries. Yippee, somebody's a poet. This is great. So what we look for when we run through these things, if we're a writing coach, is what makes something good or bad? How can we subjectively kind of go through something like this and attach to it any form of meaning? How does this relate to the standards that you teach in your classroom? What you're seeing here, I asked the same question of a student in Mr. Holman's room. Garth spoke to us last time. And she wrote back, her name is Liz. She said her favorite fruit was named Liz. Date of harvest was 12/5/99. The fruit's occupation was, I asked the same thing, what's your favorite fruit? Write about your favorite fruit. This is what she wrote. That the fruit is named Liz. Not terribly smart down here, but can run like there's no tomorrow. Good at keeping friends. It's crazy. What does this say about this writer that posed a question about write about your favorite fruit? We see this, dislikes math even though it makes good hard sense, cries for just about any emotion and hates manicures but would kill for a pedicure, all from a raspberry. Bright, gorgeous red skin, piercing brown eyes, dark eyelashes. As you read through this, one of the things that occurs to me, and we're all different, if I'm working with this writer, I see something in the writing that is magical. and I gravitate toward the magic. I want the writer to know that I see something incredible in what she's done. What is that? What is that one thing? And for each of us, it may be different. We may read it different ways. I would work with this writer and say, oh my gosh, personification is your thing. Oh, heavens. You've taken a raspberry and you've made it human and you've applied all these emotions. That's where I come at it. But there's no right way and there's no wrong way. There's only your way. So I ask you, as you wrote, and we've captured what you said, and we'll go back and look at that too, but when you're inclined to write, there's a strength to what you do. There's an individualized human strength to your writing versus someone else's. And the challenge becomes, where can you find it? How can you see it? Or how can a student or a learner see it? How can a peer see it? Okay? So my question to you is, what are some strengths in the response to the prompt? And I think we answered that, and just for time's sake. Go on to the next question, which is, what would you do next to encourage the student forward in her writing? And I just ask you to think about that. Were that your students? If you said, write about the fruit for 5 minutes, and she came back and said that, would our natural inclination, based on so many things that we're faced with every day about Common Core and everything else, would we be inclined to say to that student, oh, you're a little bit off target. I was looking for a description of the fruit, which is maybe where you live. Where could we find a place to massage the confidence into that writer to self-express and to develop that strength? So those things said, I just want to, before we get into the remarks by Mrs. Marsh, I wanted to remind us of the toolkit that we have. This is the toolkit that we're working with in this class, and I'm breaking it up into 4 different pieces parts, okay? I want us to be cognizant of learning standards. They're bedrock. They exist as a great structure on which we can hang the flesh and the meat, the really good stuff of teaching. Second thing that we ask that you consider is, especially when we're talking about the soft side of literature and literacy and writing, that what we do is realize this natural human kind of emotion that we have to always draw things into lived experience. And that's really a tense-oriented kind of function. It's what we, little kids, when they first pick up a crayon, their will to draw you pictures is just driven by telling you what the lion did at the zoo. They can't contain themselves. It's regressive. I lived it. I need to share it. I need my lived experience to mean something, and so forth. Second step being the future or the progressive. Third step being the present. Okay? So that's part 2. Part 3 is we've talked about this idea of place learning. If you've lived an experience, if you've lived something, it's inherently tied to the place that you lived it. And there's a strength and connection between human being and place. When you close your eyes, you envision 10 years down the road, when you're accomplishing all of your dreams and goals, you will see a place. And what the feeling is that we're trying to evoke in you is that we can leverage that knowledge. We can leverage that ability to tie a student's interests to a place of their own selection. Place in learning. And the fourth is this whole idea of constructivism, allowing the student to have control of what they're doing and construct their own knowledge of worth, what that worth is to them. With that toolkit in mind, then, the way that we're going to proceed in this course, kind of starting with what Dr. Broadway talked about, proceeding to Garth, now me, is to work you into 3 assignments that we're going to do. Okay, 3 sets of assignments. First thing we're going to do is we're going to ask that you identify a topic, a place-oriented topic, something that's close to your sense of home, whatever that, however you define that. Close to your community, a community that you value. Perhaps that's wrapped around the school where you teach or the library where you serve. And then what we want to do is find something special within that place that has either a problem attached to it or an opportunity attached to it. There's something that could be done. It's neato. It's a diamond in the rough in some particular fashion. It's an inquiry topic. So our first order of business is going to be to identify that. Second, what we're going to do is we're going to use that place, that PBL that we identify. You're going to go ahead and write actually 3 pieces in this class. You're going to write a narrative piece that puts you in that place. In storytelling form, very fictional. Characters, plot line, setting, dialogue. Okay? We're going to do an informational piece on it, citing 3 sources. This is where the librarians shine because they're going to be like, oh yeah, I know exactly where to find that. And then persuasive. Persuade people that an idea to promote better of that place or better of that community. Persuade others that it's worthwhile. Now, in order to be able to, and then finally, number 3, we're going to translate this exercise, this coursing that we're doing. We're going to translate that into some form of outline that can go back into your classroom. How can this impact the way that you teach? How can you envision doing that? That's a hard thing. Your job in this class is completely hard. It's not easy. We're trying to innovate. We're trying to push ideas. Okay? That's what we're here to do. I'd like you to think of this class according to everything we know and love about Bloom's taxonomy. We started out at the base level. We were talking about some things that we just kind of wanted you to remember. Remember how important we're talking about place as being, aware of me as being important. And the more we talk about it, and I'm sorry I'm talking a lot, but we move to understanding. And then let's get into the application process in our cohort pairs in this class. And ultimately, we're going to a place where we're going to create and capture what you create as a means of saying, you know what, here's some really bright, hard-studying teachers and librarians. Here's what they said we can do to promote better literacy in the classroom. That's it. So that said, what we're going to do, and I invite you to keep this up on your screen. We're going to switch off real quick. And Elaine Marsh is here with Friends of the Crooked River. She's kind of an expert on all things related to the Gorge Dam, and we have selected this piece of property. There's a big dam that's 59 feet tall in between Akron and Cuyahoga Falls that's being talked about for removal. Elaine's going to talk about that. But that's a neat place-based kind of challenge. She'll talk about the upside and some of the cautions that go along with that topic of removing the dam. If at any time during her presentation you at your station would like to read more about the subjects that she talks about, you're welcome to. What we're going to do is we're going to put up on the big screen and share with everyone the PowerPoint that Elaine has brought with her, and she's just going to talk you through it, okay? Thank you, Elaine. All right. Come on, you guys.
It's okay. I'm really happy to be here, and I wish I was taking this class.
Okay.
All right.
Need to go. This will just take a second, you guys. Okay.
Okay, so I can use either this or that.
Yeah, there's this
Okay,
one.
all right.
Okay.
So I want to begin by telling you just who Friends of the Crooked River are. We were established in 1989, so we are 25 years old. We're a nonprofit, all-volunteer 501c3 organization, and our goal is to preserve and restore the benefits of the Cuyahoga River for all of the watershed citizens. We focus on the fishable, swimmable objectives of the Clean Water Act. We believe that the Cuyahoga River is the virtual heart of Northeast Ohio, and that its health reflects exactly the health of the region. So here's our cute little watershed. The Cuyahoga is a short river, only 100 miles long. It is young, only about 1,000 years old, formed with the retreat of the last glaciers. It's shallow, and it has this unique shape because down there at the bottom, it hit a rock, which is Cuyahoga Falls. And since it hit that rock, it couldn't continue going south as it wanted to, as it would have, and so it turned north. So this is where it starts in Geauga County and goes 100 miles along its length to Lake Erie. It has a varied landscape as it goes along. In the upper watershed, it is a near wilderness. And as it moves downstream, there are a lot of wetlands that protect the river from development, and so it remains very natural and scenic as it flows through Geauga and Portage counties. Then it moves into more urban areas in Summit County, finally into Cuyahoga County, ending up in the navigation channel of Lake Erie, or the navigation channel of the river. And one of the reasons that this river has such a varied landscape is that it has a varied elevation change. As we all know, elevation change and water, gravity, are the things that make rivers. And so this is the profile of the river. And it falls a total in its 100-mile length of 717 feet. But the most amazing thing about the Cuyahoga, for being a young river, is that over 200 of those feet happen in less than 2 miles. And that is pretty astonishing geology. It rivals the geology of Niagara Falls. This geology, you can imagine, has been celebrated throughout history. And in the mid-19th century, Highbridge Glens Park was started in the city of Cuyahoga Falls. And it was the largest tourist attraction in Northeast Ohio at the time. And so people arrived here, went through this bridge at the top of the upper gorge. They went down steps, crossed a series of swing and suspension bridges, ferried across the river, and got down into the lower trails. And if you have interest in this, Mary McClure wrote a very interesting book. She's a very lyrical writer and historian, and it is called The Highbridge Glens of Cuyahoga Falls, and it was just written a few years ago. And at the end of their trails, the people saw this. This is Capacow, the Great Falls of the Cuyahoga, a 22-foot, 3-tier falls that was the hallmark, the end, the quintessential place on the Cuyahoga River, sacred to the native peoples before us. Well, something happened in the later 19th century, and that is the Industrial Revolution. And with the Industrial Revolution, rivers became important because they could provide, their water provided a number of things. And one of that was mechanical power. And so through this upper gorge in the Cuyahoga River, here we see about, this is about 1906, about a dozen factories along the waterway. And this did a couple of things. First of all, it changed the water quality because the factories used the water for to carry all waste away, to create mechanical power, and to cool their machinery. So here we see a number of dams, a total of 4 across there, for the purposes of cooling the water and magnifying this mechanical advantage. It was an era of dams. It is when we believed that dams were going to be the #1 savior and producers of electricity. And so in 1914, the Northern Ohio Tractor and Light built 2 dams on the Cuyahoga one being the Great Gorge Dam. And with this dam and the spoiling of water quality, the tourism in this part of the river ended. So here's this dam today. Here's what it looks like today. 400 feet wide, 59 feet high. It was built in 1914. In 1929, Gorge Metro Park was established through lease with the Ohio Edison Company. Then between 1917 and 1958, there were off and on hydro operations. It never worked. The flow of the Cuyahoga was insufficient and unpredictable. And though they tried a number of times to enhance the operations there, in 1959, they gave it up. Along with the hydro operations was a coal-fired power plant which used the dam pool for cooling water. And that operation stopped in 1992, mainly because the dam was heated up so much from the coal-fired operation that was literally boiling the fish. So in 1992, all operations ceased and the dam became obsolete. Then in 2003, a private company applied for a Federal Energy Regulatory Commission permit. That permit, thank goodness, was challenged by Summit Metro Parks, and they successfully challenged that permit. And so in 2009, the company gave up the ghost and left, and we began to explore removal of this dam in earnest. Now, I'm interested in water quality, so why am I concerned about dams? Well, for one thing, dams are a barrier to fish movement, which means they can't spawn and generate progeny along the river. And so fish population and diversity in places along the river goes down, as does overall water quality. A dam stops sediment transport, it traps toxins, it changes the food web, it does all sorts of nasty things that impacts negatively both the chemical and aquatic standards of the river. So in 1996, Ohio EPA began looking at obsolete dams on the river, and at that time there were a total of 9 dams, and of them 7 were obsolete, meaning they had no purpose other than just standing there. 10th Dam, Monroe Falls, Howard House, and Sheridan and Cuyahoga Falls, the Great Dam of Ohio Edison, the Peninsula Dam, and the Brecksville Dam. So the first dam to be examined for removal, and that is what the Ohio EPA required, is that obsolete dams be investigated for the feasibility of removal in order to improve water quality. And this is what the dam looked like. And it was a long, hard fight, but 7 years later, in River Day of 2005, we had this magnificent, beautiful design. If you know, one of the things that the city wanted to do was to maintain the historic dam. It was actually on the National Registry. And they wanted the waterfall. And so that you can see there is a waterfall there. It's not generated upstream by the river. It actually, there's a great screw pump that pumps it up there. But it is a magnificent design, an internationally acclaimed design, and it was the change in the beautification of the river downtown, I believe, that spurred the redevelopment and beautification of the city of Kent itself. It said all things were possible to go from that rather ugly dam to this magnificent park. And it had all wonderful consequences, one of which was the economic development downtown, another economic development that happened in 2011. A livery was established, and it is growing by leaps and bounds ever since. The next dam to come down was in 2006, the Monroe Falls Dam, and here you can see it. And it gives you a good idea exactly how dams impact water quality. You can see all that algal growth from the low dissolved oxygen of that river. And also, there was no access to the river here, and I'll tell you what, as a paddler, I can tell you it was one of the worst portages around that dam that existed. And so people really did not enjoy this part of the river at all. And then in 2006, the dam was removed and Brooks Park was established. And now, literally, many, many thousands of people a year enjoy this site, including about 3,500 each year for the River Day experience celebration there in May. And we have increased paddlers and fish. So the next dams that we looked at were two in the city of Cuyahoga Falls. These were built in 1914 by private interests, and those interests are now gone, and the city owned the dams, and they just sat there. And after about 3 years of negotiation and study, in 2013, both of those dams were removed, and the river reclaimed another 2.5-mile stretch of free-flowing river for the water, for the fish, and for the people of Cuyahoga Falls. Now, obviously, if you want to develop a place, you can't just remove a dam. You have to draw attention. You have to bring people down to the river. And so the city of Cuyahoga Falls has always been very proactive as far as development along the river is concerned. And in 2007, they tore down several old factories, relocated businesses as they had to, and reestablished that High Glens Park. Built this fantastic walkway that went halfway down the gorge, and this bridge, and a pavilion. And it, like in Kent, has signaled looking at the re-beautification and development of downtown. An interesting story is, see those two gentlemen on the observation bridge. One of them had lived in the city of Cuyahoga Falls, not more than a mile away from this site, and jogged the area 4 to 5 times a week. And he had no idea that looking off that bridge, he would see this. This is the magnificent upper gorge where the river falls about 100 feet. And because it was so obscured and people did not have access to it, and let's remember that until recently the water quality was very poor there. So people did not know about this fantastic resource that they had available to them. Oh, wait a minute, let me go back. All right, let's see. All right. This fall, this 200-foot fall, creates an opportunity for whitewater paddling that is remarkable. Now, 99.9% of us wouldn't even consider paddling this, nor should we. But for the people who are expert enough to do it, they do it whenever they can, whenever the water level is safe for them to do it. And while most of us would never want to do it, believe you me, it is wonderful to watch. And so this particular stretch of river, if properly developed, and the city is looking into ways of doing that, could create an attraction of international renown for experienced whitewaters and whitewater events. But it's not just for paddlers. We have this magnificent lower gorge, which has been obscured because of the dam pool. And this is some of the, this has wonderful history and some of the area where those original people walked through when they experienced the High Glens Park in the 19th century. And so many people are interested in bringing people back to this, removing that dam pool so we can all experience it from land. At the same time, our interest in removing the dam are going on. There is an effort to create a water trail along the 100-mile course of the river, Again, because water quality is better, in 50 years we've gone from a burning river to a recreational resource. And we can have the health and benefits, the health and recreational benefits, the fishing benefits. That is a steelhead trout. Imagine the Cuyahoga, a trout fishery, quite remarkable. Whitewater paddlers. And another reason to develop the water trail is to encourage clean water infrastructure-based development, where we not only celebrate the clean water, that we use clean water as a way of development. This is a map of what the water trail will look like when it's done, and that should be within, I would say, the next 5 years. We've been working on it about 3 years now. Now, when the gorge dam is removed, not only will it be a spectacular place by itself, it will be connected to the other recreational wonders of Northeast Ohio. The 100-mile-long towpath trail that links the cities from Tuscarawas County up to Lake Erie. It will encourage economic development based on clean water infrastructure and on providing the recreational support, equipment, rentals, places to eat, and places to stay. It will join with other redevelopment of recreation, like use of the navigation channel for recreational paddling, and join the efforts of the other wonderful parks that we have in the area, including Cuyahoga Valley National Park and the wonderful metro parks of Geauga, Portage, Summit, and Cuyahoga County. So when we remove that dam, the river will become a focus of, the gorge will become a focus of the river's rebirth. It will signal a time when the people, instead of turning their back on the river, have looked to it for their future in terms of recreation and health and economic development. And we're already working on it. We're not far away. In 2009 and 2011, U.S. EPA studied the sediment and determined there were 832,000 cubic yards of moderately contaminated sediment. Right now, what we are looking at is a feasibility study that will study sediment management and do an engineering analysis of how it will be removed. Permits and study requirements will be identified, and funding strategies and public education will go underway. And this aspect should be done by October. So, okay, so when we look at this hunk of concrete, all we need to do to remove it is two things. We need the money, which we believe we can get, and create the public support and vision. And to create the vision, all we need to do is dream. Thank you.
Really nice. So what I wanted to do, Elena, I thought that was fantastic in terms of your presentation. So let me ask you something.
Sure.
If we're talking about students that are in schools, and I saw in your bio that you are a former teacher, correct?
Correct.
All right. So we're talking about students that are in classrooms, and we have a teacher here from Cuyahoga Falls, Melanie. You know what? Elaine, you know it. All right. So what do you think you could do to engage a student in this project in a 7th or 8th grade classroom? How could you go about that?
Well, I think starting by showing pictures, talking about the how important water quality is, and encouraging them to go to Gorge Metro Park in downtown Cuyahoga Falls and take a look at it. I think one of the things, so a 7th or 8th grader, they won't remember bad water quality. Show them a little bit about what bad water quality looked like and why that the gorge had been taken away from them. I think, I don't know, I mean, for myself as a child, even though when I was a kid the water quality was terrible, I loved to be near the water. So I think getting them to the water anywhere would be a way to do that.
So the seeing and the touching and the feeling, Melanie, does that resonate with you in terms of your students?
It does. I can honestly say my students are they talk about this a lot, and if you can gauge their responses, their parents, by them, they're very interested in the removal of the dam, and they're very positive about it. And as far as knowing that the water quality is bad, they might not understand the big picture, but they know that the dams were just removed, and they spend a lot of time down at the waterfront, and they're extremely offended that once the water level went down, that there was trash and litter. That once that you could see the water once it was gone, that what people had done to the river. So they were very offended by that. They're intrigued by the new possibilities for rafting, and so they're really excited about it.
So we have each year River Day. This year it is going to be, I believe, May 16th, the third Saturday. And there are opportunities all over the Cuyahoga River to get kids out to participate in cleanups. And the city of Cuyahoga Falls does a River Day cleanup, and they do a Trails Day cleanup again in the fall. And they encourage kids to participate in that, as do other cleanups. So that would be another way to get kids involved very directly and hands-on.
Are there any other questions that we have, I guess, first in Akron, just because we're all here? Did anything pique your interest, or do you have any questions for Elaine while she's here? No? Cleveland and Euclid, what do you guys think? Are there any questions that you guys have for Elaine while we've got her here?
We have a question here in Cleveland.
Okay.
It's just talk here and mute.
When you showed that picture of like the Cuyahoga River going south and then going back up north, it looked like there was a river above it and a river below it. Were those rivers also?
Well, yes, they are. The rivers above it are short little direct tributaries. Euclid Creek goes through there, Doan Brook. There are a number of short little direct tributaries, and then that's to the north and east of us. And immediately to the west is Lorraine. What is that river? Lorraine. But there are rivers. If you look, if you would go to a watershed map of Ohio, and ODNR has a really good, on their website, really good watershed map. You'll see there are a number of small watersheds in the Lake Erie Basin of Ohio.
Black River.
Black River, thank you. Black River to our west.
If you click on the Wikipedia entry that you gave us, places to place learning examples, you click on the Wikipedia one, you go to that website, and then they have a map. And if you click on the map, you'll see the watershed. You'll see a more detailed thing of what you showed us.
Oh, yeah.
And that might answer your question.
Okay, please.
But I have a question as a ex-science teacher or a science educator. Middle school students are really into fire. So I was reading the whole section in the Wikipedia entry on fires on the river and the history
Yes.
of the river. Number one, I found that intriguing. And I haven't had time yet to go look at the pictures, but have you tried to see if private people have pictures of the 1969 fire? Because the Wikipedia says no pictures of the 1969 fire are known to exist.
Not true. Not true. There are pictures of that fire. There are pictures of that fire being put out. But the pictures that are normally associated with that fire were taken in the 1950s,
Right.
when there were regular fires, and the worst time for fires, of which there are quite a few pictures, were in the 1930s, when the absolute worst water quality existed on the Cuyahoga. So there are pictures. I have a couple. Ohio EPA has some. There is a file, I believe, in the Cleveland Library of all of the Cleveland press pictures, and there are a number of pictures of fires in that file. They're hard to find, but they are there.
Okay, thank you.
About the fire. I never forget about the fire, and I usually show pictures of it. I could put together a file of some pictures and send them to Tom, and you could have access to them.
Sure. Now, do you go out and speak to schools at all? I mean, do you?
I do. I do. And particularly if students are interested and have demonstrated interest. I mean, obviously, there are an awful lot of schools in the watershed, and when we started, I spoke a lot more with schools, but just became diverted to the conservation efforts, and so didn't do it as much. But if you're interested in developing students through these power of the pen exercises, I think it is so easy to fall in love with the Cuyahoga River. I would come to any classroom who would encourage that.
Very good. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us. I appreciate it so much. And we're going to continue on, and I hope that you can stick around for just a couple more minutes.
I can.
That'd be great. So I'm going to go ahead and do some screen sharing again here, if I can navigate my way into that, right? So here we are. I'm going to go ahead and screen share. I'm going to get us back over to our presentation. Can everybody see that now? Cleveland? Euclid?
We can see it.
Okay. So here's my next question for you then, based on what we have just kind of talked about and heard about. What event in your own past experience does discussion of the Gorge Dam bring to mind? Okay. Please enter your answer. when you're done penning something out and you feel comfortable with it, you just go ahead and click post. I love the last sentence on this. I would love for more children to be able to experience the nature that I did in a clean and safe environment. Beautiful. Look at this one. Intelligence that had heard that it was on the high hit list for terrorists. That's really incredible. What a thing to understand when you're a young person. What a great sentiment. What teacher among us, what librarian among us, what instructor or guest among us isn't interested in doing something that promotes things in a positive way? I think that that's a shared bond we all have. This is a beautiful sentiment. I love this. All right, so here what we're doing is we're saying, okay, it's reminding me of something that's an example of this type of PBL, close to home. Wait a minute, something was a downer and now we've turned it into something really cool and positive. I really love what you said about the river as being kind of an impetus to change and development in Ken. I think that that's a wonderful, wonderful story. I didn't know that story. I didn't know that. How cool, how cool. Yeah, so in Brunswick, here we are, a little small nature conservatory that's helping to maintain the park structure. Okay, so what's next? And maybe it could be in the area of the environment. Maybe there's some other thing that we can find. Don't our kids, as Melanie from Cuyahoga Falls was telling us, don't our kids want to be the heroes of tomorrow? Don't they want that? Maybe it's with the environment. Maybe it's something entirely different. I love how this writer is saying, wait a minute, I'm just like this Dan. He's kind of personifying, right? I'm going to change and evolve, and we have to be comfortable in changing and evolving with our surroundings. That's okay to do. What a great reflection. Yeah, Hoover Dam. I just saw a picture of that the other day when I was working on this. Really incredible. It brings people with the places, right? It brings our fathers and our mothers. A fire. Okay, so and here we have somebody that's like using this presentation as a lily pad. It becomes a lily pad to something else for them. And isn't that a wonderful thing, right? Really outstanding responses, you guys. Next one. Do you favor, this would be the persuasive. This is persuasive writing, okay? This is the hardest writing that we do in schools. Ask anyone who teaches like 12th grade ELA. Ask anybody who teaches college writing. Persuasive is the toughest. You can think of it as Carrari progressive. Your own future. What would you dream of in your own future? So do you favor an effort to remove the dam? Why or why not? Let's go ahead and ask that quick question. And just a couple words on this one I think would be great. Want to go ahead and lock in your answers? We'll kind of start. I do favor removing the dam. I have seen the transformation on other parts of the river. The dam should be removed because it will improve water quality, habitat for wildlife. You listened well. The answer is a resounding yes. I love that. Where'd that go? A resounding yes. Improve water quality. Resounding yes. Rivers are created for a purpose and should be returned to their original purpose. With this information, I had never really given the idea much attention or thought. However, the promotion of a healthy water system will set a chain reaction. Dam needs to be removed. So I think by a show of hands now, and I'm going to test something here because I'll probably screw this up really bad. Maybe I won't. Let's see if I can do this. Isn't there a little duty thing that I can say, no, it wasn't that? No, I'm going to screw it up.
Check with the dot drag thing?
Yeah, how do you do the dot drag thing?
Try going back to ask a question.
Huh?
Try going back to ask a question.
So we're learning together now.
Where that little question mark was in the bottom of the page. The little question mark. Is that how you pull up the ask a question thing?
Yeah. Well, let's not monkey with that because I want to be respectful of your time. But I think pretty much we have universal support for the idea of removing the dam, right? Yeah, Elaine's over here pumping, doing a fist pump in the air, you guys. She's so happy. So the last thing I'd like you to do is, if you would, then consider it this way, which is an informational writing question. Okay, so removal at Gorge Dam raises many topics. Name 3 things that most interest you, positive or negative, about removing the dam. So what I'm trying to get to is basically some ideas of information sources that we can reach to when we're working with students if this were the topic. So if you have some ideas that you'd like to share on that, what interests you most? Would that be the biology of the river or the ecology of the river? Would it be the environmental aspects? Would it be recreation or economic development? In those instances, where would you be inclined to turn for answers? And this is really a question related to librarians. Where can we turn for information about this? What could we send Elaine with as a lovely parting gift to help her kind of even deepen her wonderful presentation from today? What information sources or ideas could you plant with her? The purification of the water system, the diversification of the fish population, and rejuvenation of the surrounding ecosystems. There's interest in that. I would look into scientific journal and studies that have examined the removal of other dams and water structures. It's an interesting, that's kind of like, look at the scholarly work that's been done on this. That helpful, Lily?
Mhm.
How long would it take to restore water quality and wildlife? And would it happen naturally, or would it require human interference and input? How will the project be funded? What impact? Lane, would you like to speak to any of these questions?
In terms of how it would be funded, should the Great Lakes Restoration Fund be continued, which we hope it will, that is a source of money that we're looking at. But there would have to be several sources. It cost $5 million to take out the Kent Dam and about $3 million to take out the Monroe Falls Dam, about $1 million to take out the two in Cuyahoga Falls. We really have no idea how much this will take, but because of the issue not just of the removal, but of sediment, it will be substantially higher, incrementally higher than any of the others.
I think I had seen a number like 60 million.
Well, I think that was the back of the cocktail napkin estimate.
Was it?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know, but we will know by October.
Yeah. What about this other question, like how long to restore water quality and wildlife?
Well, water quality, in terms of the aquatic community in Kent, it was restored within 2 months because of the geology of the river. In Monroe Falls, it immediately went from non-attainment to partial attainment, but we have not yet achieved full attainment of aquatic life standards. And the biologists at Ohio EPA say we're probably about 3 years out. So it depends on many things, including the geology, the existing biology, the flow of the river. So it will take some time. Although the gorge part of it, not too long, because of the fall and how quickly the water will clear out of there. Well, we just wait for the fish to move in there.
Sure, sure. Environment, recreation. What is the next step to fully reclaim the river? I think we were talking about that idea that in October of this year there's going to be some movement. Spiritual inspiration to Native Americans. Think of that in your classroom. What a cool thing to be talking about. Originally lived along that area. I'd like to know if anything was written about that. And
I'm not sure, but I think that was the Seneca. Knowing more about the Native Americans, I did spend some time researching this. Not enough. I would love it if somebody did. It's a lot more obscure. They, of course, did not have writing. And by the time the Europeans moved in, they were gone.
Right.
So, but I would love to know more about this.
Sure. How are residents impacted by recreational development? A lot of people interested in recreation. Beautiful if the area can be. Love seeing the before and after pictures. That's so true. Excellent comments here with respect to sourcing it.
In response to the EPA, there was a really excellent article. It is a scientific article, but it's very accessible to everyone. That was written by Bill Zawisky and Steve Tuckerman for some scientific magazines. It was written, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago. I don't remember that, but I could send a copy of that to you, Tom, and you could post it.
Respond to this question, I would so much appreciate it. And the question really is as follows. What literature, fiction and nonfiction, might you recommend to a teacher that was looking at this issue? I'll repeat the question. Librarians, if the topic was the Gorge Dam and a teacher approached you, what literature, fiction or nonfiction, might you be inclined to direct them to? And we're talking about middle school teachers. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and just leave that screen up while we close things out. So if you have any comments about literature, please go ahead and enter those. And let you know that we'll be joined on Thursday, kind of the same kind of exchange. We're going to invite in Dave Lieberth, who's the former deputy mayor. It's just real easy because Akron's, right here. So Dave's going to come over and talk about John Brown and the start of the Civil War and what John Brown has meant to this region. It's another kind of hidden gem. And from that, what we're going to seek to do is to kind of get you going. We're going to stop talking fairly shortly, and we're going to start churning you out into pairs. Your own PBLs of your own development. Okay? So that's what we're doing next time. Before we go, I just want to say thank you, Elaine. Again, you're wonderful. You did a fantastic job, just fantastic. Thank you to everyone who attended. Are there any questions or comments before we go? Okay, well, I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. Thank you, thank you, thank you 1,000 times over.